is actually being expended. And I'm saying this when this week Umeme has handed over to UEDCL. So the cost of doing business is important, include not only transport, including electricity, including education and health. And that's how we shall create more jobs for the youth. I also wanted to appreciate this very topical discussion because we have had UPE and USE. UPE is now going to 27 years almost, and it was actually seamlessly followed by USE. How come the people churned out of this education system are not the very ones required by the Industrial Revolution? And I think that's a very important question. Ideally, we should have known that the education system is going to churn out those we need so much to build the low-cost housing, to create technologies, to do the current digitalization, science and technology, the ICT people, the agricultural revolution, the value addition, the tourism we are talking about, including if we worked like Filipinos who send people. For them, externalization of labor is serious industry. They send plumbers, they used to send plumbers, now they send engineers. But for us, we are sending Kadamas. So for us as NPA, as a think tank, we think even there are a lot of areas. If we just churned out enough nurses, they are very much on demand out there. Enough plumbers, enough carpenters, but don't send house. I wish they were housekeepers of African standard. But we are sending Kadamas, so that is a problem. It's good that I've been informed that last year we even looked at those not going to school, because we are also, the dropout rate is so high. Those who do not complete P7 and fail to transit to secondary, that number, we should think about that youth group. The numbers which join S1 but don't make it to S4, only 5% of those who started P1 actually go to tertiary institutions. So the debate is much bigger. And that's why the relevance of the education system is very important. And for me, I would say we should actually make some subjects compulsory even in S1. Myself, I believe agriculture, where most people end, because 68% still in agriculture, should have been compulsory. Bookkeeping, because everybody, whether you become an engineer or a doctor, you need some bookkeeping. It should be compulsory. Health science, not biology. Biology should be for those who want to become doctors. Health science is what is going to talk about hygiene, sanitation. So that's what we saw last week, everybody flooding. Does not happen. That one is indigenous knowledge. Ventilation, hygiene, nutrition. You get to know that you cannot build your plot up at the end because water must pass anyway. So there is something wrong, and we hope that the Education Policy Review Commission of Bushega, the findings are going to be implemented, because that also has been given. I therefore want to say, as I go to read my paper, that we must make sure we have an uphill task if we are going to make sure that we create jobs for those who have gone to school, but including those who fell out. Government is currently doing rationalization. NPA has taken over responsibility of Population Council and also the fiscal planning function, a national fiscal development plan from lands, though there is still some contestation. And we think the intention of resolution was okay to make sure that we avoid duplication and parallel competing units. But it should be across the board, not just the institutions where we started. We're lucky during the consultation of the NDP4 in Parliament, parliamentarians themselves are proposing that we should reduce the size of Parliament. So if such money can be channeled in some of those areas, there are a lot of other proposals. We are losing a lot of money in corruption and largely in procurement. We see centralized high-value procurement, common user item intended to provide import substitution for those objectives. Unemployment is in the whole country. Uganda is not Kampala, not Greater Kampala. We need to look at regional targeting. Whatever we want to do should not only be in Kampala, but across the country. Now to my paper. A few things may be talked about. Distinguished guests, policy makers, youth leaders, members of civil society representatives of development partners, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of National Planning Authority, our chairperson, Professor Pamela Mbabazi, and management, I bring warm greetings and sincere appreciation to the organizers of this forum, Open Space Centers, the National Youth Council, and the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office for the support. This forum is timely and necessary as we prepare to roll out the NDP4. It is critical to engage directly with Uganda's youth, who are not only beneficiaries but key drivers of the development agenda. As NPA, we are proud to partake in this engagement. Youth development is no longer a policy afterthought. It is a cornerstone for inclusive growth, social stability, and national transformation. Uganda youth and need challenge. Uganda's population predominantly youthful. I've already said that. Our citizens at 75% of our citizens and below the age 30, presenting both a development opportunity and an urgent policy change. Current estimates suggest that over 2 million youths are in need category, not in employment, education, or training. This is a demographic pressure point with implications for productivity, public health, and social cohesion. More than 1 million youths enter the labor market each year. However, the economy is not creating enough decent and meaningful jobs to absorb this influx. And I've given you the estimates. Rural youth, young women, and those living with disabilities face even greater exclusion, highlighting the need for tailored and inclusive intervention. Need youth are disproportionately affected by informality, job insecurity, and limited access to skilling and reskilling opportunities. How does NDP4 respond to youth unemployment challenges? The theme of the NDP4, sustainable industrialization for inclusive growth, employment, and wealth creation. Youth employment is embedded in the plan. The plan's strategic vision. The strategic objective 3 of the NDP4 focuses on enhancing human capital development to drive productivity and competitiveness. This includes the expansion and reform of education and training systems to better match labor market demands. The fourth National Development Plan identifies several flagship development programs that directly and indirectly target youth. Each of these programs integrates interventions aimed at equipping young people with relevant skills, expanding employment opportunities, and fostering inclusive participation in the economy. These include 1. Human Capital Development Program. This is a core program addressing the education to work pipeline. It seeks to reform and expand Uganda's education and skilling system to ensure that young people acquire market-relevant skills. The program emphasizes strengthening technical and vocational education and training TVET institutions and aligning curricula with labor market demands. When I was an MP for 15 years, and as a director of schools, while emphasizing vocationalization and TVET, I used to tell my parents and students, vocational education in vernacular is kusomerera mirimo. But the other education, you are just book learning. But when you are studying to be a plumber, a carpenter, welder, because we had a problem, a mindset problem of thinking that vocation is for failures. We're just beginning to realize how I wish we had a duo like the Switzerland people and the Germans. My first job, I worked in procurement and logistics. I worked with a Swiss company full of Germans, French, and there is nobody who is a graduate without either first being some mechanic, some plumber. They know something. At least you are a plumber or you're an electrician or you're a mechanic. So how did we then, for us, think you can be a graduate without knowing some basic? Even your school fees came from agriculture. But you don't want to go in the cow dung where you got the school fees from. When you finish S6, you want a necktie from your mother, but you don't want to go to the garden, and you want a new shoe after S6 in back. So the education system actually disorients us. The other point I wanted to say, we should also make it that in your first semester of the university, you should have the life skills. You should know some communication. How can a graduate write a letter in WhatsApp English? Some of these things should be done in there should be some compulsory courses in the year one for every university. Filing, just filing. Okay, now we have computers, but just keeping records. There are things that are so important, life skills, which everybody must get. And for me, I agree entirely. Scaling up digital skills, life skills, and career guidance across all education levels. Enhancing teacher and instructor capacities to deliver competence-based training. Integrating school-to-work transition mechanisms, including internships, apprenticeships, and mentorships. There are so many areas to learn from other countries what can be done. And that's what I'm saying, the best time to do it is at school. Because people now, you have to finish a degree in something, then you start looking for some professional course. So why wasn't it in your first 3 years of the university? So that still shows you there's something wrong with the education system. The goal is to produce a highly skilled and adaptable youth workforce that can drive industrialization and service delivery. Private sector development program, recognizing the private sector as the engine of job creation. This program seeks to stimulate youth entrepreneurship and enterprise growth. It focuses on expanding access to affordable financing for youth-led businesses, supporting business incubation centers and innovation hubs, targeting youth entrepreneurs, streamlining regulatory frameworks to encourage youth participation in medium, small enterprises, enhancing the productivity and competitiveness of youth enterprises, especially in high-growth sectors like ICT, agro-processing, and services. This program aims to shift youth from job seekers to job creators by unlocking barriers to business development. Now, can I first labor to redefine employment? Employment is not just, people think when you graduate, you must go and get employed by Richard Seward and get a desk, and you're on a payroll, and you get an appointment letter. That's very narrow definition. Government can only give us maximum 500 jobs, including the army, the police, and everybody. The jobs are going to be created by private sector. So government is only an enabler. So it's important we understand that you can be an entrepreneur even when you are still a school kid. I bought a goat in P5 and a cow in P7. Don't you think I had some level of, I don't know. I even sold Kabalagala, but I was the son of a head teacher, and they were wondering why I'm doing funny things. He only refused me to sell cigarettes and beer, but why? It was making more profit. One night, I was selling cigarettes and beer through a window, and I got some good strokes for it. But the jobs are, you are going, you know, the hustle, you've heard of hustler, the Juakali, a boy who finishes P7 when he has a garden, and when you sell it, you make money. I once went for holidays at my mother's side, because my father's side as a head teacher and full of local, he couldn't make alcohol. So when I went to my mother's side, I made local brew, and that's how I got a car. A lot of money from just local warrage at my mother's side for a holiday. So jobs cannot be, you can't wait to graduate. We used to have day 6 on O level and evening. Why can't one study in the morning and go and work in the evening? For people I've sponsored, I don't allow them to do day course. They all do evening. If you've gone to school through my godly given some charity, you go get a job during the day, you go and hustle in the restaurant somewhere, in the evening you go and study. Do you know what I've seen in the end? The guys who do day work and study in the evening are more successful than those who go and waste a lot of time at campus. At the end of the day, I have even one who has left university with a car. Because where he went to work during the day, he was given a lot of assignments, he was promoted while still a student. By the time he graduated, he had a car. Now for you at campus, loitering around. Who told you you should lose those 3 years? I also don't believe in this S6 back mentality. You finish exams in November, and you report to university in August. Do you know the time you have lost? People should be encouraged to work during that time. You know? So I think there are so many areas we need to look at how to make sure that one is more gainfully employed, you have more productivity. So this mentality of S6 back, then you go sleeping. Where did it come from? It is wrong. Those days people used to go for national, I don't want to call it Mchaka because I'm an Arab. I want to call it, they used to call it, not civics, what was it? Compulsory. In some countries, when you come out, you go for some training, patriotism and what. But now that it's better that you get to know some, you get some engagement and get some work. So I'm emphasizing the informal sector we have in this country. Yes, we are struggling to become formal, but the truth is we are largely informal, and that's why people are having jobs. So before we struggle to make everything formal, it will take time. People should know jobs will not be in government. For us, when we left Makerere, that time they would come and give you, by the time you do exams, you're already being sourced where to go and work. Things have since changed. So you must learn to be creative, and I think I implore the youth to take those informal entrepreneurship approach. Agro-industrialization program. With agriculture employing the majority of youth, this program modernizes agriculture into profitable and industrialized sector. It promotes youth-led participation in agriculture value chains, including production, aggregation, processing, and marketing. Establishment of regional agro-processing hubs designed to offer employment, training, and enterprise opportunities. Improving access to inputs, mechanization, and agro-technologies for youth farmers. Encouraging agribusiness incubation models tailoring to young people in both rural and peri-urban settings. The program aims to make agriculture more attractive to youth through productivity, profitability, and innovation. Digital transformation program. This program accelerates the digital economy and recognizes ICT as a major enabler of youth employment. Its intervention includes scaling up digital literacy and foundational ICT skills among youth at all education levels, supporting youth access to freelance online work platforms. The BBP, you can keep books of accounts of a Canadian company in Kampala. And that line has a lot of people can get jobs online. Supporting youth access to freelancing online work platforms and e-commerce through national grid economy initiatives. Establishing community innovation hubs and digital skilling academies across the country. Promoting digital entrepreneurship, including support to startups in fintech, health tech, and agri-tech sectors. It positions youth as key actors in Uganda digital transformation by reducing the digital divide and building future-ready skills. Paris Development Model. Although a broader community-based initiative, the PDM places a deliberate focus on youth inclusion and the Paris level. It seeks to provide startup capital and production inputs to youth through Paris circles. Facilitate enterprise incubation and agribusiness training tailored to local contexts. Equip youth with financial literacy and business development support to maximize uptake of PDM funds. Promote leadership and participation of youth in Paris development committees and decision-making structure. The PDM is a game changer for rural youth, connecting them to economic opportunities at the grassroots. These 5 programs, complemented by others such as innovation, technology development and transfer, manufacturing, and sustainable urbanization, and housing program from the comprehensive architecture of empowering Ugandan youth and NDP. Commitment going forward as the custodian of the National Development Plan, NPA pledges to enable youth-focused outcomes in all programs, implementation action plans, what we call the PIAPs. Strengthen evidence-informed planning through collaboration with MDAs, academia, the private sector, and the youth organization. Support harmonized monitoring system to track progress on youth employment targets. Facilitate regular stakeholders dialogue, including with the private sector, civil society organizations, and development partners on youth development. Advocate for increased public investments in youth skills, innovation, and employment promotion. Call to action: Uganda demographic dividend is only as strong as the opportunities we create for our youth people, for the young people. Let us move beyond policy intentions to practical implementation. Let this forum catalyze partnerships, investments, and accountability. Let us commit to a Uganda where every young person is seen, heard, and supported to thrive. Before I conclude, I wanted to talk about some controversy. Sometimes we are misled by our development partners and the copycatting. I condemn child labor in the strongest terms possible. But in African culture, we are trained to work from child labor. When you go and work during the holiday, that's not child labor, that's training. If your father is a cattle keeper and you derive school fees from there, you should actually perfect it. And now I wish you could even train to modernize it. So that age, more so after age 12, everybody, and I'm looking at you Kampala parents who do not have gardens for your children, who think that meat comes and milk comes from the fridge. It is part of the lack of productivity. Because if everybody, the children in the village, who learn how to cultivate when they are still young, they are already being productive. But for you, put a car in fuel, take your kid to school. You have to buy some things at school. Now we have VDs. Some of you look for 500,000 for VD. You know, so there is a lot of confusion also. So for me, sir, I'm a son of a teacher, and sometimes I'm also a very strict director. I take my children for holidays in a village, and I don't have a housekeep during holiday. The housekeep gives them lunch on arrival from school and goes away, and comes back. They give him or her a meal when they are going back to school. They should cook, so that they can learn too, because these attitudes are very important.